All right. Looks like we've got things rocking and rolling here. Everything looks good over here. Fantastic. We'll just get that window closed. Oh, cool. Cool. We're going to take a brief minute here, and I'm just kind of going to pontificate for a little bit. Um, because I want some people to be able to get into this before we start really talking about this little Discord trick and how I think it's really going to change faction warfare for really any faction warfare game in the future. Something that has always been a really big problem with faction warfare games or with any structure to overwhelm um, hmm, porque you know what else I forgot is to turn on I moved, but apparently not. Feel like maybe it has something to do with my computer. Come on now. You just stop it. Okay, looks like it probably has stopped. Keep an eye on it, see what happens. Okay, anyway, so one of the big things that has always been a problem in large scale PvP games is mega guilds have a significant advantage because they have more cohesion and they have more information and more access to information about what each other are doing, right? When you have a singular Discord and everybody is willingly sharing information, right? There's no reason to hide anything within that singular Discord. So everybody knows where all the players are, right? Everybody has access to this amount of information, where everybody on your team is and what is going on in the world. And that's just really, really important. And so today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a Discord trick that I came up with. It's possible that I'm not the only person who came up with it, right? It's possible there are other people out there who thought the same thing as I did. But a Discord trick that I came up with that will help improve the collaborative efforts of disparate groups. So if you have an alliance, right, where you're not just a mega guild where you have 5 guilds and they're all in an alliance together, but you have 5 completely independent guilds and you're all operating together, right, playing together. But you don't necessarily have a singular Discord, right? You each have your own Discords, and maybe, envoys or people are parts of each other's Discords and stuff like that. But it gets really messy really fast to try and understand what is going on within those 5 guilds, right? As a guild leader, I'm not going to go check 5 Discords every 20 minutes so that I can see what all these other 5 guilds are up to. I'm only going to check those other Discords when I feel like something I'm doing may interfere with or be part of something that this other guild is doing. So what I want to do is I want to automate that information transfer. I want to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to have as much information as possible. Because that's really the only way to overcome the disparity in information and numbers that exist between mega guilds and people just playing the game the way it's meant to be played. So let's take a look here at our Discord. I've created a completely new Discord account, and I've created a couple of channels here. And I'm going to show you just real quickly here how this works. So the trick here is when you have a community channel, right? These are set up as community channels. When you have a community channel, you get access to announcement channels, right? You get all these special kinds of channels. But importantly, you get access to these announcement channels, and these announcement channels can be subscribed to by not just channels here on this very same Discord server, but also by other Discord servers, right? I can go over here to YouTube Test 1, and I can go down here to one of their channels, right? I can go ahead and select General, and because I'm an admin, you do have to have admin privileges on the server that you're trying to follow on, right? But because I have admin privileges over here, because this is my channel, I can follow. Great. I can follow this active operations announcement channel here on this general channel here. And I've already followed it on this general channel here. So what I can do is I can type in some information here. I can publish that information. And then if you look, BAMO, there it is, YouTube Test 2, Active Operations Channel, typed test. But if I go over to YouTube 1, we have the same right at 12:01 p.m. today. YouTube Test 2, Active Operations Test. Now this means that if these are, say these are two different guilds, right? YouTube Test 1 is maybe my guild. Sorry, YouTube Test 2 is maybe my guild, and YouTube Test 1 is an allied guild. I can give them information about my existing active operations without having to talk to them, right? I give them the ability to view, right? They don't have to have admin permissions on my channel. They have to have admin permissions on their channel. So all they have to be able to do is see this channel briefly to be able to follow it. And as soon as they can see this channel and follow this channel, then they have access to everything I type in here. So I can provide them with a thorough accounting of what is actively happening with my guild, right? What are we doing right in this moment? I can inform them of whether or not we need assistance. I can inform them of whether or not we're willing to, take on some of their members for an operation, right? Maybe their leadership is on vacation or something like that. Or maybe their leadership just isn't even online, right? As soon as this system is set up, your leadership doesn't need to be online for your members to be able to see what your allied guilds are doing. So maybe all of your leadership is offline right now, but maybe one of your allied guilds is running an operation to go gather spice or, to go take a control point or something like that. Without your leadership even being there, your members can just attach themselves to this activity, right? And just zip on over in their ornithopters and go help the faction do stuff. Right? This is an incredible amount of information. And so this is sort of just step one. But we see that we can follow multiple channels, can follow this one announcement channel. So we could conceivably make another guild, right? We could join another guild into our alliance. And that guild could also follow both active operations channels, right? Right now, this channel doesn't have an announcement channel. So this guild here isn't following anything from them. But once this guild creates an announcement channel, then my guild 2 here follows it. And now we're swapping information back and forth. And you can even put that information in the same general channel. So multiple channels can follow a single announcement channel, but also a single channel can follow multiple announcement channels. So I can get into this general, actually, I would name this something else, right? I would name this like faction operations, is what it's named in my guild. But we name this faction operations, and then we follow our own announcement channel. So now this announcement channel can be air gapped, right? Because I am following my announcement channel with my faction operations channel. So you set this channel here up where nobody can type in it, right? Nobody can talk in this channel. This is strictly an information feed. And then this channel is invisible to 90% of your guild. Only your leadership has the ability to type in this channel. And so your leadership will keep everybody apprised of what's going on, what active operations are happening by typing in this channel. So your regular members don't even see your announcement channel, which means somebody can't infiltrate your guild unless they manage to infiltrate all the way up to the level of a leadership member in order to follow your announcement channel, right? Because it's air gapped, and this is where your members are actually getting their information. You can't follow a regular channel. You can only follow an announcement channel. So you air gap everything and you share that information, right? Your enemy or your allies share that information. And then no matter how many allies you have, right? If you've got 5, 10, 15 allied guilds, no, I don't know if there's a limit to how many channels a single text channel can follow. But even if there is, right, you can just make another text channel and it would separate your information a little bit, but it would still be an extremely valuable way to share this information. So, you've got 5, 10, 15 guilds that are allied with you, right? Because guilds are only 32 members. So 10 full guilds is only 320 members. But this also means that extremely small guilds can have an equivalent impact on the whole as they would normally have if they were part of one of the larger guilds. So this is a really, really good way for communities of smaller to mid-sized guilds to also really have value and to be able to maintain their autonomy while still having that value. So if you and your 3 best friends are going to be playing Dune and you want to help, right? You want to be a part of all that stuff. You want to go and, mercenary style, go help people obtain objectives and do objectives and, fight PvP battles and do all these other things. One of the biggest problems you're going to have is the amount of time you're going to have to spend in other Discords figuring out what other people are doing to identify where you can go and help at any given time. And this follow system, it does mean that you're going to have to get yourself added to the alliance, right? There is going to be some diplomacy there. You are going to have to go and find some of the guild leaders of the alliance that you want to join. And you're going to have to say, hey, it's just 4 of us. We want to join you. You're going to have to go through their crucible of, playing together and getting to trust each other and all that stuff, because they're going to be trusting you with a huge amount of information about what they're doing at any given time. But once that's all done, you now instantly have access to be able to follow all of their active operations channels. And now you can just have a feed in your channel that's saying everything that your faction is doing. And you can go, ooh, this looks like something that they might need my help with. Ooh, this looks like something that they might need my help with. Ooh, this looks like something that they might need my help with. And then you and your 3 buddies, right, whenever you're online, you just swoop in there with your ornithopters or whatever you're doing, and you go help with emergent gameplay, right? This is all stuff that's happening, being created by players. Now, the next thing that's super important about this is anytime I edit this, it edits for every channel that's following. So now we'll say this is a test. And then it says this message will also be updated in all servers following this channel. It may take some time before all servers are updated. Confirm. And then we go check out. Boom, this is a test. We go check in YouTube 1 in the general. This is a test. That's super cool. And then the last thing that happens is because we want this to be active operations, because we don't want operations that are no longer underway to be showing up, we then delete. There we go. It took a minute for it to update, but we then delete the message here in active operations. And when you go, instead, you'll just get original message deleted. Now there are no more active operations here. Right? You can see nobody is currently doing anything. And this gives you a very, very clear picture of what is going on in the world that you're playing in. Right, for your alliance. Now, this is specifically information that your alliance is sharing with you. Right, these are your allied guild. This is your faction information. But we can also share enemy faction information. And we can share it in exactly the same way. We can do enemy operations. I don't actually know how to spell anything. So we've got operations spelled two different ways here. But here we have enemy operations. And then we'll add another text channel that we will also call enemy operations. And then we are going to go right here to enemy operations. We're going to hit follow. We're going to follow on YouTube Test 2. We're going to use the enemy operations channel as our follow channel. And now, when I type in here, and again, only your leadership is going to see the announcement channel. So your regular members, if they see something going on, right? Maybe whoever, Jim from your guild, who's a regular member, maybe they're a parent or, you know, they got a full-time job or both, and they only play for a couple hours on the weekends, but right now they happen to be flying around on an ornithopter out in the deep desert, and they see enemy faction gathering spice in grid A7, right? Because it's a 9x9 grid. At least I think it's going to be a 9x9 grid because they say there's 81 grid points in the deep desert. So we're going to use alphabet top to bottom. We're going to use, I think it'll be alphabet top to bottom, but we're going to use like an alphabet and a number system, right? And this is going to happen in game, right? The grid in game is going to exist. So you're just going to be able to use the in-game grid. You don't have to create your own grid, but you're going to give the grid information for where these enemy operations are happening. So like spice gathering occurring in grid A7, 12 enemies identified. Yeah, that seems like a sufficient bit of information, right? So this could be, we'll call this a PvP activity. And we will discuss a little bit communication conventions a little later, but you would maybe say something like, just for brevity, PvP, enemy spice gathering, grid A7, 12 enemies. So let's type that in, right? PvP, grid A7, spice gathering, 12 enemies. And then we would send that out, right? And so Jim tells one of the leaders in my guild, hey, I'm flying around. There's 12 people gathering spice over here in A7. All the information that Jim needs to give to any of my leadership. And then one of my leaders can just go ahead and type this in and publish it. Confirmed. Now that I have this published information about enemy PvP operations going on, you'll see it just registered here. Now my entire guild can see that there is PvP action happening in grid A7. It's spice gathering. There are 12 enemies. Fantastic. We want to stop enemies from getting spice. That's very important. Now we can also share that information with our allied guilds. So again, our allied guilds are going to copy what we're doing, right? They're going to create an enemy operations channel. We're going to give them the ability, right? We're going to get their guild leader into our channel real quick. We're going to give them the ability to see this announcement channel. They're only going to have the ability to see this announcement channel briefly. They're going to follow the enemy operations on their server. And now, when I type this stuff in, PvP grid G5, control point, 5 enemies, right? Brand new set of information coming out of guild number 2 here, right? YouTube test guild number 2 puts out that there's PvP in grid 5 control point. You might even be able to register what control point that is, right? What house that's for. We've got 5 enemies, so my whole guild sees it. But if we move over to YouTube test 1 and we look at enemy operations, boom. Now we know, and it's even telling us where we're getting this information from, right? YouTube test guild 2 in their enemy operations server is telling us that there's PvP in grid G5, control point 5 enemies. So we are subscribed now to all of the information coming out of YouTube test 2. But we also want YouTube test guild 1 to be sharing information. So they're going to real simply copy the exact same thing that we did on YouTube test guild 2. We're going to create these announcement channels. And now we're going to do the exact same subscription system. So active operations is going to be followed in YouTube test 1. So I'm the leader right now of YouTube test guild 1. I just created these. I need to follow these channels in my own guild. So we're going to follow general with our active operations. We're going to go down to the enemy operations announcement channel, and we're going to follow in the enemy operations channel. But then we're also going to give the leader of YouTube test guild 2 access to these two, right? The ability to see these two just briefly. And then YouTube test guild 2 is also going to follow enemy operations in their enemy operations. They're going to follow active operations in their own general channel. And now guild YouTube test 1 can also share information. So right now in enemy operations, we see that YouTube test 2 guild has provided some information about enemy activities, but YouTube test 1 guild hasn't been contributing yet, but they now can because everybody is following these new announcement channels. So now the leadership of YouTube test guild 1 can go right in here and type in PvE spice gathering. PvE grid H6. Whoops, H tag 6. Spice gathering. Actually, I don't want this to be in. Sorry, I don't want this to be in enemy operations. I want this to be in active. So we're going to PvE grid H6 spice gathering 8 friendlies. Okay, so now you know in the deep desert in grid H6, 8 friendly members from guild YouTube test 1 are actively gathering spice and just letting everybody know so you can go join them, gather spice with them. Or you can not. Sorry, I forgot to publish. You always got to remember to hit the publish button. But as soon as you publish, you see we've got this. So now YouTube test 1 is in active operations. But now again, in that same general channel where normally we're only seeing all this YouTube test 2 information, now we know guild YouTube test 1 is in active operations, gathering spice in grid H6. And that information is available to both of these guilds because one leader typed one sentence. And this scales infinitely, right? I type in one message, and everybody who subscribes to this announcement channel now has that information. And this announcement channel is protected because only the leadership members of my guild have access to type in here. So everybody sees it, right? This is an open channel for everyone in my guild. I don't leave this channel open to people outside of my guild because I don't want to be supplying information to a potential enemy. But if you're in my guild, you have access to view this information here. You can't type here. You can't add anything to the announcement channels. You can't do any of that. But if you're a regular member of my guild, you will have access to see what's going on. Not just with my guild, but with all of my allied guilds. And so even if I'm not on, right, if you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and nobody else in the entire guild is on and all the leadership is sleeping, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I really don't want to go running around solo. That sucks. You can get on here, and maybe there's an allied guild who's got some people up doing some late night operations, and you can just see that and go attach yourself to those operations with any allied guild. So an incredibly, incredibly simple system to help you manage the information being disseminated across your allied group. And the reason this is important is because it means that you no longer have a need to join a mega guild. It is no longer necessary because mega guilds are trash. 100% without question, mega guilds suck. And so now, instead of having to be a part of some enormous machine, you can simply join an alliance and share your information and be a part of something better and bigger while maintaining your autonomy. And so we talk a little bit about air gapping this. We talk a little bit about control, but let's put a little bit of that into practice. So let's make a couple of rolls here so that we can see exactly how some of this breakdown will happen. And then we'll talk a little bit about the spycraft aspect of this. So let's take a look at, we'll go into our server settings here. We'll go into our roles. We'll create a new role. And we will give that role a name. This will be leadership. These are going to be really generic. We're going to let the leadership be green. And we're going to save changes here. Now, normally you need to go in here. You're going to need to do a lot of permission stuff when you create a new role. I'm not going to really do a bunch of that. What I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to want to go in. I'm going to want to look. Sorry. I'm going to go back to roles. Nope. We'll do this in a minute. So the first thing, because this is the leadership role, we're going to go into our settings here. We're actually going to make this announcement channel private. And as soon as we make the announcement channel private, we can add roles to that channel. So I've now added the leadership role. Oops. Okay. There we go. I don't know what happened the first time there, but I've now added the leadership role to this private channel. Now I'm also going to go back. I'm going to go to this announcement channel. I'm going to go to its settings. I'm going to go down to permissions. I'm going to make it private. Then I'm also going to add, I don't know why it's minimizing when I do that. And I'm having to make it private twice. Make it private. And we give the leadership role access there. Now, we are going to need to go back into server settings. We're going to make two more different roles. We're going to make a member role. We're going to make that one purple. And then we're also going to make an outsider role. We're going to make that one yellow. And so now we want our members to be able to see these text channels here. So we're going to go in and we're also going to make these private, because what we don't want is we don't want our outsiders to be able to see our active operations channels. So we make these private. We save these changes. And then we go down here. We're going to make this a private channel. We're going to give both of these access. We're going to save that here. And now we'll see that anybody in our guild is able to see both of these operations feed channels, but only our leaders, and you can see it says right here who has access, leadership and members. But to make sure that we get this right, we can go back into server settings, we can go into roles, we can do, hang on, there's a view server as role option. Here we go. So we view server as a leadership role, and we see that we have everything. But if we eliminate the leadership, we take outsider. All you have access to is the rules channel and the general text-to-speak channel. And then if we're a member, you'll see that we can only see these subscription channels that are gaining the information. So now we get rid of the member, we go back to leader, and we can see them all again. And this is how you control the flow of information, is by controlling who has the ability to give information, not necessarily who has the ability to get it. So you can be sure that the information in these channels is accurate, is up to date, because you have a very limited number of people pushing information out. But then everybody can use this information to make decisions for themselves about where they want to be doing things, what they want to be doing, and who they want to be doing it with. Now, the one thing that I don't really like about this is it doesn't say who typed the message. So in my guild, the way we have things set up is we have the council, who are the leaders, right? Myself and a couple of other people are the council. We make all of the large-scale decisions for the direction of the guild. But then we also have a sort of mid-manager tier of leadership, which are our elites, who are the people who are going to manage individual groups, right? Like 4-person groups during active operations. So you might have people who are really PvE focused in the elites who are going to, be in control of maybe like a spice mining group while we're doing spice mining operations. So you would have one group leader who is running, the defensive PvP focused ornithopters in the air who are watching out for enemy combatants. You're going to have the PvE focused elite member who is running the transport ornithopter, the people on the ground actually gathering the spice, all of that. And then you're going to maybe even have a third group of people who are doing like all the thumpers and stuff like that, watching out for the worms and different things like that. And so you need those per group leaders to also have access. And what I wish is that it would tell you who typed the message, so that if you happen to really like working with a certain unit leader or group leader, then you could see, oh, okay, that group leader is doing this activity right now. I really like working with that group leader. I'm going to go work with them. Unfortunately, that information isn't here. I guess you could type that information in yourself. Instead of starting with PvE, you could start with your handle, your name. But that adds a lot of information here. And so I don't know if I like that very much. I'm doing the best that I can to sort of limit the information as much as possible here. Because I want it to be a sort of quick reference guide, right? I want you to be able to just come in here, take a quick peek, say, oh, okay, that's really cool. These are the things going on across all of these different guilds. And, make a decision for yourself about what you want to do, where you want to attach. And then, so one of the last things that I think is really important about this system is it also creates an opportunity for espionage. And what I mean by that is infiltrating enemy Discord servers so that you can follow their announcement channels. Because there's sort of a balance here, right? Between the incredible value that you gain from automatically disseminating information in this way, but also it leaves a vulnerability, because if you somehow let a member of an enemy guild into your leadership, or if somebody from an enemy guild manages to finagle their way into you giving them permissions to see this announcement channel, they can then follow that announcement channel on their server, right? If I was in a third guild, if I had YouTube Test 3, and it was actually an enemy faction guild, right? If they ever managed to get the ability to view this announcement channel, they could take and follow that on their own personal channels. And then they would end up with all of your information that you were disseminating. Now, you can't follow this general channel here, so they couldn't get your entire alliance, but they could specifically get your guild information. So there is a bit of an air gap there, right? They can only get one guild at a time, which is pretty important. And you can stop them. So there's nothing in here, right? If you look at the settings, you can't see who's following your channel, right? There's no list of who's following. So you can't go through and like choose to not allow a specific group or person to follow your channel. What you can do is you can go in here to settings. And so I haven't tested this. We're going to test it right here live. But we're going to turn the announcement channel off. We're going to save that. And then we're going to turn it right back on and we're going to save it. And we're going to see if the channels that are following are still following. We're going to type in a test here. We're going to publish. And let's see. Okay, they are. Wow, that's really interesting. Okay, so let's instead do this. Let's delete the channel. And then let's create a channel that has the exact same name. And then let's type test, publish, confirm. Okay. And so now any of the channels, so this one is the original test, but not the second test. So now any of the channels that previously were following are no longer following. So if you feel like your announcement channel has been compromised, all you have to do is recreate the channel. And then get everybody to refollow it, which could be a little bit of a pain in the butt, right? So, you know, depending on how many allied guilds I have, maybe I have 10 allied guilds, that means I have to reach out to 10 guild leaders and say, hey, I think my channel was compromised. This is who I think compromised it. I'm not going to allow them to refollow. Do you want to refollow real quick? And then you got to bring them over here. You got to give them quick access so they can see it. And then they have to follow. And you have to also follow for your own server. But considering how easy that is, I think that's a fairly good device for being able to overcome that. And I think it's a lot of fun as far as espionage is concerned, because again, I can go in here, and if I'm an enemy, I can get access, right, however long it takes, whatever I have to do to gain access to this active operations announcement channel and follow it. And then I can just leave this guild, or maybe I stay in this guild for a while, right, keep up the ruse. But espionage becomes this sort of legitimate opportunity. And I think that's really cool. And the scalability of this system is incredibly important, because my guild never has to interact with more than these two channels, right? This general channel that's disseminating information about allied activities, and this channel that's disseminating information about enemy activities is all my members ever have to care about. They don't know about these announcement channels. They don't have to look in these announcement channels. They don't have to really understand anything about the communication. They don't have to know anything about the communication conventions, right? They're just going to receive information. It's going to be short, sweet, easy to see, right? PvE, Grid H6, Spice Gathering, 8 friendlies. Right? That's all they ever have to know is how to read this from left to right to understand specifically what information is going to be happening, what activities are going to be happening, where they're happening, and how many people are involved. So my average member, right, my regular casual have a real life only on a couple hours a week members can log into the game or even just be on Discord, right? Maybe they've got other things that they're doing. Maybe they're doing chores in the house, right? Washing dishes, picking up, doing laundry, whatever they're doing. And then they've got their Discord on their phone, right? They're only getting notifications for these two channels because these are all the channels that they need. So they know that anything important going on for the entire alliance, for the entire faction, is going to be popping up on these two channels. So my regular members can have these two channels turned on. They can get notifications. They get a notification. They take a look. Oh my goodness, the enemy is about to get a Sissel Rad because they're on the control point for the last one of their Connect 5s. Everybody needs to be there to go stop that. And they can say, okay, well, I'll do the dishes in an hour, right? They go jump on, they get their hour of playtime in. There's no waste in playtime in any of that, right? They can always have a really, really good picture of what is going on in the game world, even when they're not in the game world. Because all of this information can just be kept up to date, right? And because if the active operation ends, I just delete the message in the announcement channel, right? The leader, whoever the person was who was leading that activity, just deletes the message in the announcement channel. And then you get this message that says original message deleted. Now that information's no longer there, so you know that that's no longer an active operation. It does put a little bit of a burden on your leadership members, right? They do have to be active about typing in stuff going on in the announcement channels. And so you do need to have a significant number of leaders, right? You're probably going to need somewhere between maybe 10 and 12 members of leadership in your 32-person guild, which is a lot for such a small guild, right? That's one person in a leadership role per, 3 people. So, you've got maybe 3 of those people are your council, right? Your high-level players, people who are thinking about big strategy stuff. And then, 8 or 9 of them are your group-based leadership, right? The people who are taking care of 4-person team. And those people need to have access, right? They need to be able to say, okay, the 4 of us are doing this activity right now. Anybody else who wants to come, attach yourself. And one of the last and probably least valuable things about this system is on a guild by guild basis inside of your channel that is following and receiving all of this information, you can actually turn these into threads and give your members the ability to type in these threads. So they can't necessarily type in the main channel, but you can give them the ability to type in threads, and then you can give your leadership the ability to create threads. Or it would be managed threads so that they can create them. So you can create a thread out of any of these activities or operations, and then your members can type in here and say something like attach, right? And so now we all know that Hermit is attached to this PvE grid H6 spice gathering with 8 friendlies. So now your guild knows that one of your guild members is attaching themselves to this activity. I don't really see a ton of value in this. I think managing the threads is going to be more effort than it provides value. But maybe somebody out there can see some sort of path to value here that I'm not seeing. It could be useful in enemy operations to be able to turn these into threads, and then anybody from your guild could provide updates that way. So if you have an enemy guild that is like gathering spice or something like that, and somebody's just sitting there watching, um, then maybe you could create a thread and get some value there. But I don't really think that's going to have a ton of value. Now, there are a couple of things that you will have to look at here. So in here, you can do a number of different things. You can create a thread in these active or in these announcement channels. The threads will not carry over to the channels that are following them. So you can't really create these threads on a large scale. You also cannot create polls that will carry over. So I can't like ask a question, put it in this announcement channel, and then all of the different guilds get that same poll created. So there's no interconnectivity there. You can upload a file though. And that file can be published. So if you upload an image or a GIF or something like that, maybe you want to actually take a screenshot of the map location of where, you see the enemies or whatever, and go ahead and put that as part of it. You can go ahead and upload a file and do that way. But of all of these different options you have right here, that's the only one that can be added that will actually carry over to channels that follow. But it's an incredible system for sharing information. And again, I can't really express it enough how valuable it is to smaller groups. Right? This is great for large guilds, right? But as a larger guild, right, we've got 23 members right now, I think, out of the 32 we can have. And we're probably going to be able to get that last 9 just during gameplay and on that first couple of days of, being in the game and being active. But there are lots of people out there who play casually. Maybe they only play on weekends. Maybe they only play with their friends an hour a day. And so their value to joining a guild isn't really that huge, right? They're not going to provide a lot of value to the guild, but they're also not going to get a lot of value out of the guild. And so they're in this weird spot where they probably get kicked from guilds a lot for inactivity. And then, maybe one of the friends gets kicked and 2 of the other friends don't get kicked. And so now they're not even in the same guild. And it's just a nightmare for those smaller groups, especially when they don't play super consistently. But because of the way that we can do this, right, that smaller guild can have their own Discord, right? Those 4 friends probably have a Discord channel where they do all of their chit-chatting. And so they can just create an announcement channel and create these follow channels, right? Do a little diplomacy, talk to some of the guild leaders, be like, hey, we're a small group. We don't play that often, but when we're on, we'd like to be allied with you all. Gain access to that information, provide your own information. So when you're online, right, you and your 4 friends can be in here typing like, hey, the 4 of us are going to go do this thing real quick. Anybody else who wants to come along? Or you can see, we have, for example, here, huge spice mining operations going on, right? 8 friendlies mining spice. If you're a smaller group, your ability to mine spice in the deep desert is going to be pretty limited because larger guilds can just come, even guilds from your own faction could come and be like, no, this is my spice, smur, and kill you, and then mine the spice themselves. Or maybe you don't have enough people in your guild that you can be dropping thumpers and, be flying all the ornithopters and be gathering the spice and, do all of that stuff. And so you're just in a bad spot. And so if you see that you have a faction ally who's in the middle of spice operations, right? Grab your stuff real quick, pack your 3 friends in, fly out there as fast as you can, and go gather up some spice. And so you start becoming a part of a larger whole without losing your autonomy and without losing your ability to play as casually or as actively as you want to. So I intend to be allied with, I would say, probably at least half of the members of my faction. Right? We're talking probably 300 to 500 players, but I only intend to be the guild leader of 32 of those players. And I don't want to make a second guild. That's too much effort. I'm not going to deal with it. So I'm going to make, my 32-person guild where my viewers and the viewers of, the other streamers that are in my guild are going to be able to access. And then we're going to talk to the other guilds, the other players, maybe even some solos. Right? We're going to talk to those individuals. We're going to let them in on the information network. Because this is, so I know my title and stuff was a little bit misleading because it talked about spycraft, but this is what spycraft is, right? Spycraft is information. And so what we're talking about here is controlling and disseminating information, right? The CIA predominantly doesn't do active operations. Right? That's not what their network of people are doing, right? Their network of folks are living, existing, doing things in different parts of the world, and then gaining knowledge and pushing back knowledge on those areas of the world. And so that's kind of very much the same thing we're doing here, right? This is just information dissemination, information control. And that's really what it's all about. And it's the easiest way to overcome larger groups, right? Because if you're against a mega guild and they've got, 200 members and 50 of their members are out, hitting a control point, and maybe that 50-person guild or that 50-person group is taking the last control point they need to get a Connect 5 to get a Sissel Rad on the Lands Rad, then if you're just one guild, you don't have the ability to do squat about that. And your information about who's online on some of your allied guilds is very, very imperfect, right? You don't know what kind of numbers your allied guilds might have available. You don't know whether or not their guild leaders are online. And trying to muster up 50 people by individually sending messages to 5 different guild leaders to be like, hey, how many people do you have? Hey, how many people do you have? Hey, how many people do you have? Is insane. And so because you have these announcement channels, you can very quickly say, okay, enemy operations. Okay, we've got PvP. We've got grid B3. We've got control point. And then we'll put like connect 5 in here so people know it's an important one. And then we can put like 50 enemies. And then even if I wanted to add a little more information, I could put like 12 friendlies attacking. Right? So I put that information in there. I publish that. That's a really, really quick message. Right? There's not a ton of operational information in there at all. But now we know enemy operations. Okay, they're taking a Connect 5 point. They've got 50 people. 12 of our people are attacking. And now if I'm in group 1 here, right, I know this information. And I can say, oh, snap, they need help. And then I can go, take off and do that same thing. And then, maybe I could even put it in my active operations like PvP grid B3 um, supporting, whatever the guild is that YouTube test one, 12 friendlies inbound, right? And so now I could even say super quickly and disseminate to all of these other guilds, right? So maybe there's 10 guilds attached here. They've seen that already Guild YouTube Test 1 is sending 12 friendlies. Now, Guild YouTube Test 2 is supporting that with 12 more friendlies. We now know that we have 24 out of the 50 that we need to combat that fight. And nobody has to go to anybody else's YouTube or Discord channel, right? Nobody else has to be privy to proprietary information. You could even have separate announcement channels that you don't let anybody else follow, that is just for information that you're disseminating specifically to your guild. Right? This doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Now, I think it's important that it be an all or nothing, right? Because I think the more information you share, the better image everybody can have of the state of the deep desert at any given time, the better it is. And this doesn't just have to operate for the deep desert and for Dune, right? This system works in any game where there's a faction-based warfare system. It's better if it's objective-based, but this works. This would be really good in Albion Online, right? If you wanted to be avoiding gank groups and stuff like that, right? Getting a couple of guilds together, maybe some smaller guilds that want to run around in the black zone and do some smaller tier stuff. If you see gank groups running around, you can put that in one of these announcement channels, and people subscribe to you would be able to know, and you could share information really well with Albion Online that way. So really any sort of faction system, even if it's just player run factions, would really benefit from a system like this because of the availability of information. But I'll be right back. I gotta use the restroom.
Drat_erratic says Agent Hermit is commencing with Operation Biowarfare.
That's hilarious. I just thought up something. Um, because you can use because you can send images, and I'm not going to go into the upload file thing because I don't have like a file prepared. And there are images on my computer that are not for public consumption, but because you can share images in this way by putting them in these announcement channels. Something else we should do is have announcement channels for what our characters look like. So we need to have an announcement channel Yep, was muted. That is correct. So once we do this, the reason this is so important is this allied uniforms page being open to, everybody in my guild and following the current uniform announcement channels of everybody else out there means that my members who maybe aren't on very often and who don't really know or keep up with the political state of the game will be able to see, like, oh, okay, people who have red and gold are allies. People who have yada yada are allies. People who have yada yada are allies. And so, very quickly, just by looking at a single Discord channel, you can get that information from everybody, right? Because this will, so we'll go over here to YouTube Test 2, we'll duplicate these channels, right? So they'll have a text channel called Allied Uniforms. And they'll also have an announcement channel called Current Uniform. And this doesn't ever have to change, right? You don't have to make multiple messages. You can just edit the message. So I put an image in here in my current uniforms. That current uniform channel is being subscribed to by both myself and my allies. Right. And so then if the uniform changes, I don't have to like delete this message and make a new one and make life annoying. I can keep that exact same message. I can edit it, right? I can take out the old image. I can put in a new image and say, okay, this is our new uniform. And now, while any of the members of either of these two guilds are running around out in the world, and they see something happening, right? Super quick reference picture guide. Like, bam, okay, these are the uniform styles I need to look out for allies. Okay, the people I'm seeing right now do not follow these uniform styles. They must be the ops. And so we put information in. And then, honestly, we could even do another thing, right? We already have allied active operations and enemy operations. We've got allied uniforms. We could also do enemy uniforms, right? If you manage to get yourself close enough to snap a really good picture of what the enemies are wearing, what swatches they're wearing, what they're doing, then you can also put that information in there. And then everybody could know, right, in your whole alliance, what the enemy is wearing. Yeah, of course, Drat. Absolutely. This is my dream system, right? Because I hate, I hate when I'm trying to lead a guild and I feel like I'm just constantly giving the same information over and over and over again. And when you're leading a guild, especially if you're trying to do an alliance system where it's not just you in charge of 8 guilds, but it's you in charge of a guild that's part of an 8 guild alliance, you end up becoming this conduit. And so you have to be taking in all of the information from those 8 other or those 7 other guilds and then disseminating it to your guild. And then you have to take in all the information from your one guild and disseminate it to 7 other guild leaders. Right? And it's just a really, really messy, garbage way to try and disseminate information. Well, and so the point here is that this isn't complex at all, Drat. It's literally, right now we've got 6 channels on a Discord, right? And so our regular members will only see 3 of those channels, right? These 3 channels right here are enough to disseminate every little bit of information that our entire alliance would need to disseminate to its regular members. And so the point here is to actually limit the work because it's a little bit of upfront work, right? You've got to set up the Discord. You've got to do the diplomacy stuff, right? You've got to talk to the other guilds and you've got to get them to be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's be in an alliance. You've got to get them to set up the same system and then you've got to go follow their announcement channels. But as soon as the setup is done, it's totally automated. All you have to do is go in here and type information. This is, I'm already set up, right? Our server already looks like this. I've done this. I did this a month ago. And it took 10 fucking minutes. I mean, it's literally just click and set up some fucking channels. So, this is so much easier. And now I don't even have to be online, right? Okay, yeah, absolutely, hit me. How to deal with info when it's being streamed. You mean how to protect info? I'm not going to. That is just the burden of streaming, is that people will just know what I'm doing. I probably won't put Discord comms in the stream because I don't want to have to tell everybody like, hey, don't don't swear a whole lot, or don't say words that you might normally say that aren't good for streams. So the Discord uh, will never be on my stream, and I'll probably ask other streamers to do the same unless they're in like a really small group and they're doing like some personal activities with their own group. But if we're doing big guild operations, I'll probably ask that the Discord audio not be open to the stream. But that's just one of those things. If you're going to be a streamer, then you're going to get stream sniped, and that's just how it works. So our operations will be very much more visible than the operations of others. But also, there's some difficulty there, right? Like, because there's a lot of streamers, a lot of people stream. And so it's easy enough to stream snipe the larger streamers on your server because they have a lot more stuff going on and they're usually part of bigger guilds. But if for example, so I only intend to have one guild, right? We're going to be a single 32-person guild. So sniping my channel will mean that you can interrupt the operations of 32 people, right? And only if those 32 people are doing whatever the thing I'm doing is. It works really well when you're combating mega guilds because there might be 200 people doing something, and so you can have you can have knowledge of where like 200 enemies are at instead of 7 or 8 that might be playing with me at any given time. So because this is so distributed, again, I also think that the stream sniping will have a significantly smaller impact for our guild than it would ever have for a larger mega guild, because I'm only in control of the operations for 32 people and not even 23 right now. So hopefully that'll help. And it's why I'm fairly upfront about the fact that I stream when we have people coming in. It's why, it's why there's a channel in our Discord, not just so that people can go and support the streamers in our Discord and in our guild, but also so that they know, like, hey, this person's streaming right now. If you don't want what you're doing to be put out on the stream, then don't team up with that person. Don't be where that person's at. Because I understand it can be frustrating. But yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, people suck and they will stream snipe you. But it's fine. I'm actually really excited about this uniform thing, though. Because it hadn't occurred to me yet. And I was having a really hard time figuring out how were we going to share information about what our uniforms look like and stuff. So I'm really excited to realize that you can actually put files in here and disseminate them. And so now we can get all of our allied uniforms just in one spot, right? Super easy, quick reference. No problemo. I don't think you can follow. We're going to make a forum channel here real quick. Yeah, okay, so you can't follow a forum channel. But that's not. Yo, what's up, Blighted? We are talking about my information dissemination system for Discord. Because we're going to be playing Dune here in about 2 weeks, about a week and a half, actually. And so I have a really cool Discord system. Yes, the announcement system we talked a little bit about yesterday, but I'm showing sort of a live representation of what that looks like. So we've got two sort of test guilds here, YouTube 2 and YouTube 1. Yeah, this is for my in-game group, but I'm putting it out publicly so that everybody can use it because I think this is the best way um, to overcome mega guilds is to use this system to provide information through an alliance of separate guilds. Because the thing that mega guilds have over regular guild alliances is that all of their information comes from a single source, and so they have sort of perfect information. So the entire idea is really simple. Every guild makes the same channels. Every guild has their own personal active operations announcement channel, which is this one right here. These announcement channels need to be limited so that only members of leadership can see them. And this is where all the information is going to get put into. And then you will also have these regular general channels, which follow the announcement channels. And they follow the announcement channels of not just your guild, but of every other guild in your alliance. And so then all you have to do is your leadership members just type in, right? PvP grid HTech 2 control point 12 friendlies. And then that information gets published, right? And then it goes to the general. And now everybody can see this, but nobody can type here. And so now everybody in my guild knows this is an activity we're doing. But on top of that, the other guild is also following that announcement channel. And so they also get that information. So I don't have to come over. Yes, exactly. So nobody needs to be able to type in here, but everybody needs to be able to see it. And then all I have to do, you should separate the text channels into announcement channels to make actual chats for people to communicate. So this is just the information dissemination, right? This isn't about being able to like talk inside of the game or anything like that. This is about giving everybody the picture of the world, right? This is not for talking about what we want to do in game. This isn't talking about building groups in game. This isn't like an LFG system. This isn't any of that. This is very, very specifically like a large, like a high level information dissemination. So, what is the state of the world right now? And so it's not, this isn't a call to action. This is factual information. I'm not putting things in these active operations, right? My guild knows who I am. So when my guild sees information from my announcements, then they'll know that I'm the one putting that information out. But for everybody who's outside of my guild, this is just information. This is just to let them know that there is PvP happening in Grid H2 and that there are 12 friendlies currently there. So you can come join us or not. I don't give a shit. But you can't make a good decision for yourself if you don't have information. And so if we have 5 guilds or 10 guilds that all have this same setup, then every one of those guilds has all of the information in this channel here. where every member of their guild can see this really big picture of what's going on in the world. And because of that information, they can avoid getting ganked if they just want to go out and do some solo stuff. They can attach themselves to activities if they want to do some group stuff, but none of their friends are online. They can get into PvP, they can get into PvE, right? They can make really, really well-informed decisions for themselves because all of this information is available. Well, so there is in my guild Discord, right? There is just regular chat channels. There's a voice channel to talk, but that's for my guild, right? That's so that my guild members can interact with each other. And then each other guild will have their own Discord channels with their own voice chats and their own text chats and, you know, all of that other information and stuff. This is just the way. Yeah, so this is. I guess maybe I didn't necessarily make it super clear. These are supposed to represent two completely separate guild text channels or two separate guild Discord servers. Right? This isn't. I'm not going to ask everybody in the alliance to join a server to be able to get this information. Right? This is guild number 1 server, and this is some other guild server. So, like, YouTube 2 could be me, and then YouTube 1 could be, you know, some other person I met in the game who's also running a guild, who's also part of my faction. And I'm like, hey, we need to have an alliance. And so instead of trying to get his entire guild and my entire guild to cross-populate these two Discord servers so that we're in both servers, so that we can have better communication with each other, instead what we're going to do is we're going to use these announcement channels, and we're going to subscribe to each other's announcement channels using this follow system, so that now when any member of this other person's guild's leadership type anything in this announcement channel, right, to say, okay, we're doing stuff, and then they publish it, now everybody in my guild instantly gets that information and can say, oh, okay, guild YouTube test 1 is actively over here doing this. And so now we just have that information. So none of my members have to join YouTube Test 1 Guild's Discord to know what YouTube Test 1 Guild is doing. And nobody from YouTube Test 1 Guild needs to join my Discord for me to be able to tell them what I'm doing. Because I can just go into my active operations announcement channel, and I can type in what I'm doing, and I can publish that. And then YouTube Test 1 also gets that information, as well as my regular members getting that information. And so this scales infinitely, right? I don't have to be a part of these Discord servers, but we could have 10 allied guilds. And as long as every one of those 10 allied guilds has an announcement channel where they post their activities, all I have to do is subscribe to that channel, right? Follow that channel in this same general channel. And then all 10 of those guilds' activities appear right here. And then YouTube 1 subscribes to all of those channels. And so all of their members see all of the activities of all 10 of those guilds just in this one channel. And so now instead of trying to like get my whole guild to join 10 Discord channels and switch between 10 Discord channels to try and figure out what everybody's doing, now they can just stay in my Discord channel. And they can just, well, stay in my Discord server, and they can just look at this one channel and know what all of our allies are doing. And then they can look at this one channel and they can know what all of our enemies are doing. And then just me and my leadership consistently upkeep these announcement channels, right, with the operations that we're doing and the enemy operations that we see happening. And that information is instantly disseminated to every one of our allies. And so it's multiplicative, right? It grows. So for every guild that you have in here, you're getting that much more information and you're sharing that much more information. So instead of 2 guilds sharing, we could have 3 guilds sharing instead of, and that's 9 connections, right? 3 by 3 connections. And then if you have 4 guilds, you now have 16 connections, right? Because that's 4 by 4 connections. If you have 5 guilds, it's 25, right? And so it's just this growing thing. And the more guilds you bring into the alliance with this really, really simple system, right? No guild is putting in a ton of effort because it only takes a couple of channels. You're just making 4 to 6 channels depending on what we want to have available here in your guild server. Your guild members are only seeing 3 channels. Your guild leaderships are only seeing 6. And then they're just interacting with these 3, right? These are just information channels. So now, in order for your guild members to know everything that's happening in the world that you're playing on, they only need to have notifications turned on for these channels right here in this single Discord server. So it's an extremely small amount of effort for your regular player to be able to get all of the information available. Because all they have to do is they stay in your YouTube's or in your Discord server and they subscribe just to the notifications of these couple of channels. And then they'll be able to see, even when they're not playing, right? They can get it on their phone and they can just look and be like, oh, we're getting attacked right now. And then, if they're on their way home or if they're at home right now and they're like vacuuming, they can be like, oh, well, I'll vacuum later. And then they can go and help out if they want. So instead of needing to be sitting there on the game, constantly chatting in 16 different Discords, you just have this one central information hub that each Discord server, each guild is going to maintain for their own members. And then everybody just knows. And everybody can have near perfect information about the state of the Dune world you're in. I mean, it's not just talk. I just showed you how it works. Works super well. It's probably the most genius thing I've ever come up with. I am trying to sell people. This is 100% a sales pitch. Absolutely. Because I want every person that I ally with in my Dune server to use this system. And I won't ally with people who don't use this system because it's too valuable. It gives too much information. But it's not central. It's distributed. And that's probably the most important thing about it is mega guilds have central information, right? And they're all under the umbrella of the same leadership. It's not a faction HQ. It's a guild HQ. And so instead of having to be in a mega guild where, 200 players are all in the same Discord, you now have this distributed information system that makes tons of connections. And so each guild is still completely autonomous, right? I'm not in charge, right? I'm not trying to make a mega guild that has 200 people in it and put myself at the top and say, Well, so this isn't a place that my allies join, right? So this is like the internet, right? You don't all access the same computer, or maybe not the internet. This is like a LAN network. Where do I put myself in all of this? I'm the leader of my guild. So the 23 people in my guild are under my leadership. So I am the head of a single node. And so this is like connecting multiple computers and then having those computers talk to each other. So when I meet another guild leader, I'm not going to say that I'm in charge of this other guild now, right? I'm not trying to get that guild to join my guild. I'm getting that guild to join the alliance with me, be equal partners in that alliance. And so they're this independent node, and I'm this independent node, and we just cross share all of our information. I mean, you're not even playing Dune, so it doesn't matter. You ask questions, I'm answering questions. I can tell you right now that any alliance that doesn't use this system of information sharing is at a significant disadvantage. This is near perfect information sharing. They are 100% because information is ridiculously important. I can think of no other way to share as much information across as many disparate parts as this right here. This is as good as it gets. I am 100% certain of the fact that this system is the best system anybody's come up with for sharing information across an alliance. It's better than Google Docs. It's better than all that information. Not a doubt in my mind. And I really like this uniform thing. I'm I'm kind of surprised that I didn't think of it before. But being able to just share images of the uniforms that your members are going to be in, because this game has friendly fire on always. Even members of your own group, right? You can have up to a 4-person group. You can kill members of your own group. You can kill members of your own guild. You can kill members of your own faction. There's no way to turn that off. There are also no name tags. So you can't see that a person is in your faction just by looking at their name tag because there are no name tags. So each different guild is going to have to come up with like a uniform, right? Specific colors that we're going to wear that are going to identify us so that we don't all kill each other while we're out doing operations and getting attacked and being in PvP. So we're going to need to keep a record of that. And again, it would be really, really hard for a regular average player, right? And so the most important part of this is that it sets up regular, average, casual players to be as successful as possible because they can very quickly parse information here, right? Because you can delete, right? If I delete a message in my active operations, then I go to general here. Hang on, it hasn't updated. And now it says original message deleted. And it'll say that everywhere. So now we know that this is no longer an active operation, which is awesome. I can update, right? I can edit, and they automatically change with the edits. So if instead of 12 people, I have 8, yeah, so that is a huge, huge part of the possible problem. And so, this happened a lot in ancient medieval warfare, right? You had kings and lords, right? And your lords had their different banners with their house crests and stuff like that. And that was a part of it. You had to know who all the lords on your side were. You had to know what all of their colors were, what all of their crests were. And a big part of that was because of battle, right? People didn't put the crest of their house on their shield when they went into the battle for fun. They did it so that everybody who was on their side could see the big giant sign plastered on the front of their shield that said, "Don't kill me, I'm with you." Right? That was a huge part of why that stuff existed. And so the same thing is going to happen here. Well, right. And so that's why this uniforms channel is so important too, because you create an announcement channel. Yes, you can also wear enemy gear. Absolutely. And so we will also try and keep track of what our enemies are wearing. So that's totally a legitimate thing. We're going to have challenge codes, right? So if you're walking into an operation, if we're gathering spice and you fly in on your ornithopter, right? We're going to have people who are like in ornithopters circling the area, making sure that no enemies come. And so if somebody comes in their ornithopter and they happen to be wearing our colors, they're still going to get hit with a challenge code. And then if they don't give the right response, we're going to blow them out of the sky. That's totally going to be a thing. Um, but when we have these uniform channels, you're not going to have to memorize all of the allied uniforms because we'll have this uniform channel and they'll go ahead and they'll update, right? You upload a file. So you take a picture of the color swatch that your guild is going to use, and then you upload an image of that, and then it'll get disseminated to every guild in the alliance through the same announcement system. And then you can just go back and edit that message, right? So we don't even have to be deleting and remaking messages and messing things up. You just go in and you edit the message, you delete the old image, you add the new image. So if your color swatch has changed, and then your members, when they see people out there, can look and be like, oh, okay, we've got 10 allied groups. We've got these 10 color patterns. Okay, that person doesn't have that color pattern. Cool, they're an enemy. Kill them. Is it a little complicated? Absolutely. But that's because the game wants it to be complicated, right? We don't have name tags. Normally, name tags would solve that whole problem in game. And I don't want to take control of other people's guilds and be like, well, if you want to be in my alliance, you have to wear these colors. Like, that's not the point of this. Is for everybody to maintain their autonomy while still being able to play together as effectively as possible. And so I will never be like, oh, well, you can't come play with us. We're just going to kill you unless you wear these colors. Like, that's stupid. But I do want to know what your colors are so that I can try and not kill you. What happens then? Just stab everyone in the back. Well, yeah. So that's, I mean, that's totally a possibility, right? Even though I have these uh, announcement channels set up so that they can only be followed by leadership members, right? So you would have to be a leadership member of my guild to be able to follow my announcement channels and get the information that I'm disseminating to the alliance. It is entirely possible that somebody could come and join my guild and spend, 3 to 6 months playing in my guild and earning their way up the ladder and eventually become a leadership member. And then go ahead and hit that little follow button and then disappear from my guild and have all of this information. But there is a way to remove that. And all I have to do is I just delete the announcement channel and remake it. And then I get all of the alliance guilds to follow it again real quick. And then bam, we're back in business. And that person no longer has access to my announcement channel. So there is totally some espionage that's going to be going on, right? I fully anticipate um, enemy combatants to figure out what our challenge codes are and to figure out what color swatch we're wearing and to get dressed up and to give the right challenge code and then come, murk somebody who's in the middle of gathering a bunch of spice and like run off with a bunch of our spice. Like this is totally going to happen and it's going to be fucking awesome. I'm so excited for it. I'm excited to do it to other people. I kind of want to start my character because the Harkonnens and the Atreides look different, right? So one of the things might be that people run around without helmets on because you can hide your helmet. And so that'll be kind of a dead giveaway. So I kind of want to start Harkonnen and then betray the Harkonnens to go Atreides so that I look Harkonnen. At least I think that's how it'll be. So that way I can infiltrate Harkonnen guilds, even if they don't wear helmets. I'm really considering doing that. Like, really considering doing that. One of the other things that I haven't quite 100% figured out yet is the conventions for how these messages need to get put out. Um, I think type is an important first thing, right? Because that's the first thing people are going to look at when they're deciding whether or not they want to do something. Is it PvP or PvE? Right? Because maybe I'm in a PvE mood, maybe I'm in a PvP mood, maybe I'm only a PvE player, maybe I'm only a PvP player. Whatever it is, I think that's kind of the first bit of information that people are going to want to parse. And so I think that needs to be the first thing, right? So we're always going to have type as our first. I also don't know how we should break it apart, right? Is just having spaces in there good enough? Do I need to put dashes or slashes in between every bit of information? Um, so we've got type, and then we've got maybe subtype. So it could be PVE, but then are we gathering spice? Are we doing dungeons or caves or whatever? Are we gathering ores? There's a bunch of different types. And then for PvP, the same thing. Are we, holding a control point? Are we attacking enemy operations? Are we, what are we doing in that case as well? So type, subtype, location, right? So grid location. Um, And then I guess combatants. So if you're just disseminating information, right? So if this is an active operation that we're going on, then we would say, okay, PvP, control point, grid location B3, 12 friendlies. So maybe there aren't any enemy members yet, right? We don't have any enemies on site. And so we just have 12 friendlies. And then if there were some enemies to show up, maybe we could uh, update or edit the message or something to say, 12 friendlies, 8 enemies, or 24 enemies, or whatever. And I think that's probably good enough, right? Type, subtype, location, combatants. And I think if we just put that information out, that should be good enough to give a good enough view of what's going on. That should be good enough to give a good enough view of what's going on. Are we winning? Are we losing?